anybody who would justify, as for example Norman Finkelstein has, suggesting that it warmed the fiber of his being, a terror assault like we saw on October 7th, that's insane. I've yet to hear anybody explain why Hamas is justified in its rule. So even if you're pro-Palestinian, you believe there should be a Palestinian state, Hamas is actually an obstacle to a Palestinian state by every available metric. Hamas is a terrorist group that was elected in 2006 and then proceeded to engage in a civil war with the Palestinian Authority, whereby they killed pretty much everybody in the Palestinian Authority. They're currently a threat in the West Bank, along with Islamic Jihad. Put aside the Palestinian Authority itself, which is a very radical group that sprang from the PLO, and its military wing, Fatah, has worked hand in glove from time to time with Hamas when they're not fighting one another. You know, the reality of the past suffering in this area. In what situation would that somehow justify the kind of massacre that we saw on October 7th? And how exactly does that answer the subsequent question that I already asked, which is, what is Israel supposed to do in response to that? Is Israel's response to that supposed to be to do nothing? Is Israel's response to that to be sort of, okay, we'll keep the hostages? Is Israel's response should be, okay, well, I guess Hamas should be remaining in place? Israel has tried with governments both left and right multiple times to come up with what would be a peace partner so that they can delegate power to rule Palestinian Arab areas to Palestinian Arabs. I mean, Israel does not want, of both parties, Israel really does not want to be in control of these people, which is why the Palestinian Authority was brought in as a last-ditch effort during Oslo in order to rule over these particular areas. It's why even Hamas was walled off, I think irresponsibly, by the Israelis to be allowed to simply rule that particular area. 8,000 Jews were removed from the Gaza Strip in 2005.
First off, do you guys remember the clips on trigonometry of Bassam Youssef and Norman Finkelstein and how much pushback they got and how they had to condemn Hamas and what should Bibi have done on 10/8 as a response? Remember all that bullshit? You don't hear them pushing back against him at all. And I flagged at least 20 things before he even ended his first fucking sentence, which was a roll on Ben Shapiro, run him over, steamroller, before they can even analyze. So I would like to take the transcript of what that gentleman said. I'd like to review it and come back next week, and we could point out the fallacies and inaccuracies, because it does deserve a little bit more attention than we can give it here at 4 in the I could do it right now. If you want to roll it back. I just think that
I just thought it was so funny how he's like, not only is it justified, it's like literally the most justified war ever. Like literally what he said. It's like, I've never heard of a more justified war. It's like, oh, okay.
And trigonometry is not giving him any intellectual pushback. Now, maybe they do later, but let's start. I do want to do it live. Roll it back, LD, to the beginning of where he starts laying out his plan, and we'll see how far we get before I have to ask for a pause.
Welcome back to Trigonometry. Third time, I think, having you on the show. One of the things we've been exploring a lot on the show in recent months is what's happening in Israel and Gaza. We've had people from different sides. We had Norman Finkelstein on recently. We've had people who are very pro-Israel as well. I guess you're one of the people out there who has been most strongly articulating the idea that Israel's war is a just war. Can you explain why?
Sure. When you are a sovereign country and a terrorist group crosses your border and slaughters 1,200 of your citizens.
Nobody crossed your border, bro. Gaza's in your country. That wall is built because you guys are having a civil war with people in your country. It's occupied territory. Occupied people have a right to resist. They have a right to break out of occupation as well. Go ahead and let it continue.
Explain why.
Sure. When you are a sovereign country and a terrorist group crosses your border and slaughters 1,200 of your citizens and then takes 250 of those citizens captive back into terror time.
Scott, will you go to the IDF's YouTube page, bring up a video? Just the search is IDF's rescued alive 250 hostages. So if the IDF rescued 250 hostages after Hamas took 250 hostages, how many hostages do we have left? I'm not allowed to notice. I'm not allowed to do math. I'm not going to break out a calculator. But I'm pretty sure the numbers don't add up. I'm not saying Hamas doesn't still have hostages. I'm just saying there is conflicting news, and it comes directly from the IDF. Also, I'm going to dispute the number of people, because you can't count military people if it's a military action. You only count the civilians. And from the civilians, you have to select the Friendly Fire from the Nova Music Festival and Kibbutz Be'eri. that are admitted tank shells and Apache helicopters and Hellfire missiles. And so you really can't make that claim accurately either, Ben. Let's go ahead and continue to roll it.
That you've spent 20 years building with billions of dollars in foreign aid while simultaneously tyrannizing your own population and firing rockets every so often into the neighboring country.
Hamas is installed, so Bibi has a reasonable way to have a one-state solution, which was always their plan. They knew Hamas couldn't be recognized because they'd be so radical. No one could support the Palestinian people. They're supported by Israeli government and prime ministers and all sorts of heads, people within their state that admitted that it's a convenient proxy force to keep the Palestinian cause from getting unified or getting international attention. Also, rewinding a couple seconds because there was another point in there that he was being disingenuous about, and he should know better.
While simultaneously tyrannizing your own population and firing rockets every
1982 Israel-Lebanon war. Israel built a lot of the tunnels that Gaza and Hamas are in Gaza and Hamas are using. Specifically, the Israelis built tunnels under hospitals. They built command shelters under hospitals. Those are Israelis using human shields in the 1980s. Do you think all those tunnels were blown up? No, there's a lot of those tunnels that are still existing that Hamas is conveniently using today. And Ben Shapiro can scare you by saying they took all the aid money and they built tunnels instead of skyscrapers, which is bullshit. That's not what happened. It's also playing his audience as idiots, which I guess they probably might be. So please continue.
So often into the neighboring country, then it seems to me the extirpation of your rule is not only just, it is obligatory. And so the idea that Israel is going in to end Hamas's control over this territory is what any self-respecting country would do with a neighboring country that had initiated a vast, unprecedented terror assault inside its.
It's not a neighboring country. It's inside your own country. You didn't go after Hamas leadership whatsoever. You went after the civilians. You went after civilian population, infrastructure, schools, libraries, mosques, Christian churches, universities, all of which, and you didn't defeat Hamas yet. It's been 7 months. You have not defeated Hamas. And bro, you didn't get the hostages back yet either. And dropping bombs on the Rafah tent city isn't getting hostages back either. From my understanding of the news at this current time, 4 a.m. on Monday, June 3rd. Go ahead and keep rolling it.
That had initiated a vast, unprecedented terror assault inside its countries, slaughtering men, slaughtering women.
Vast, unprecedented terror assault. Do you know what Deir Yassin is? It's during the Nakba. Nakba had 800,000 people displaced. Deir Yassin, all those women and children and men just shot and executed. That's on the record. And we have played the clips of the guys who were there and did it and raped the women and bragged about it. They're not Hamas, bro. They're Israelis. Let's go to the next part of this clip.
Men slaughtering babies. And then again, retaining hostages, including 5 Americans right now. I find it difficult to believe that anyone would think at least the initiation of the war was not just. That's the one where I'm utterly befuddled. There are people who somehow seem to believe that the innate justification for the war itself is wrong, which I would need an explanation of that. Then there is the question as to whether the conduct of Israel during the war has been just. I'm of the belief that by all available data, not only has the conduct been just, it has been unprecedentedly so, that I've yet to hear.
He's got a mixed subject there. So let me go back. Let me give you a metaphor. Back in the days of Auschwitz, let's say hypothetically, some of those prisoners got out and they just started killing Nazis like it was a Tarantino movie. What do you like? Flip the story, dude. It's the same thing. So are they okay to break out of Auschwitz, kill some people on their way to freedom that have been oppressing them and doing their laundry and hanging out there? Like, did you see the Oscar-winning film? What was that called? The new one that they protested. It's like the camp director Hoos that lives outside of the camp, and his family has this normal life, but the smokestacks are going on in the background. Anyway, it was just it won the Academy Award, and then the director said some stuff about Palestine, and then they said he was a self-hating Jew. There was that whole. Anyway, I can't pull the name for that film right now, but it's a thing. It's a recent movie. So these things that he's talking about in history. Also, here's one of the rhetorical, intellectual self-defense exercises that you, the audience, can do as well. Every time he makes an accusation, just flip the names in the accusation and see if it fits better, right? He makes some like proclamations about Hamas, but then it like, oh, well, the Zionists did that first. So it's like, that might be true. And who did it first? Well, okay, we have to include this part. He doesn't include these parts. That's his whole argument. Let's go to the next part.
A situation in which during a war, the power that is fighting to extirpate a terrorist group or an opposing power is simultaneously also supplying that group, which is what is happening, with power, with water, with food, with humanitarian aid, because Hamas is stealing a huge chunk of.
This is beautiful, because I agree with Ben here. It is a unique time in history that you're fighting a war, but you're also supplying the enemy with, what did he say? Food, water, electricity, all the good stuff that they need to fight the war. Let me ask you, why does the other side not have that stuff unless you, the prison owners, give them those supplies? It doesn't sound like a war, bro, because you just said it's unlike any other, because it's not a war. The other side doesn't have barracks. It doesn't have a military. It's not allowed to be armed or trained or provided like United States of America is backing Israel. Israel can't make its own munitions. Boeing has to send it over there. So there's quite a dichotomy between what he's claiming and what the evidence in existing reality actually is. And that dude has lots of followers that are listening to that and saying, yes, exactly. Ben said it, so I can believe it. You might want to check the facts. And they don't care about your fucking feelings. Let's go continue to play this.
What's going into the Gaza Strip, and everybody knows this. And then simultaneously...
No, everybody, stop, pause it. Everybody has seen the colonizers, the settlers, and their kids out there tearing up the aid trucks and dumping the fucking food while the people are starving, bro. That's what people with internet savvy and a phone have in front of them all the time. You can't gaslight us. Go ahead, let it play.
Its own soldiers in order to go house by house, as opposed to simply taking advantage of its complete air superiority over the entire region, letting people know weeks in advance of any assault in a particular area.
They did not go house to house in Rafah. They didn't even fucking go tent to tent. They used their air military superiority to fucking bomb those people and kill 40 the other day, which is the exact opposite of what he just said. He doesn't get challenged. And if you say Rafah happened after that interview, they did it 100, probably 1,000 times in the last 7 months, just like that. So let's go ahead. Continue to let him unwind.
Area to allow for a humanitarian movement within these particular areas. All of the, for example, focus on Rafah as a place where Israel is about to commit some sort of human rights atrocity. Over about 1 million people have already been moved quietly from Rafah out of that area so as to clear that area for the possibility.
Quietly? Come on,
bro. First off, Rafah is a city of 250,000 that you told everyone in the north of Gaza to go there. And that's why there's a tent city of 1 million people that you had to move to another place. They were bombed the whole way. You bombed them there. You bombed them at the new place. But it's all just a tragic mistake, like these sailors found out back then. Go ahead, let it play.
Possibility of uncovering terror tunnels, many of which are linked with Egypt, unfortunately. Israel has lost something like 260 soldiers in the process of this. Thousands of people have been wounded in the course of carrying out.
Hold on. Does LD on the soundboard, do you have taps? The sound of taps? Because 247 soldiers have died over there. And that is tragic. I feel for their families. But their government is putting, first off, their government had their military stand down for 7 hours that morning and have a bunch of their IDF people slaughtered just to get this thing kicked off. So take that into consideration versus the 40,000 plus people and 100,000 people injured and 1 million plus people displaced on the other side. And it's not being like, if what happened by Hamas was so bad, why is nothing he's saying true to the facts? Sounds like a frame up. Go ahead, let him play.
This combat, their terrorist to civilian kill ratio is the lowest in the history of urban warfare. And so my question to all the people who are suggesting that Israel,
none of those guys had a question. Go ahead. Like we showed stats earlier tonight that disprove that. Neither of those guys on the sofa are like, oh, what's your source on that? What's the source on that? Because if you look at Lavender, Where's Daddy? What was the other one they called? Gospel, right? That whole GDF clip earlier tonight that showed the kill ratios and the acceptable kills. You could kill like hundreds of people if you're getting a senior Hamas person, but if you're killing a junior person, only 20 to 30 people collateral damage is acceptable. That doesn't reflect what he just said. It contradicts it. What's the resolution of those contradictions? Go ahead, let him play.
Urban warfare. And so my question to all the people who are suggesting that Israel is doing something unprecedentedly horrible is, can you suggest an alternative whereby Israel is capable of extirpating Hamas?
It's rewind it 5 seconds. What was his something horrible?
Is, can you suggest an alternative whereby Israel is capable of extirpating Hamas, getting rid of Hamas's leadership? That is not unprecedentedly horrible. My question to all the people who are suggesting that Israel is doing something unprecedentedly horrible is,
unprecedentedly horrible. I don't know that it's unprecedentedly horrible until you get past Nakba numbers, right? Right now, what you got are like rookie numbers, but if you keep running this until the elections, you could probably get up to Nakba numbers. I mean, wait, they might be passed because Nakba was 800,000 people displaced. They've already displaced over 1 million people. I guess they're running up. They're like doing Nakba too. So, okay. It's worse. Sorry. Let it play.
An alternative whereby Israel is capable of extirpating Hamas, getting rid of Hamas's leadership. That is not what they're doing. I've yet to hear anybody actually explain what the alternative would be other than Israel should not do anything and they should leave Hamas in place.
Well, right. When we had
Bassem Youssef. No one has said Israel should do nothing and they should leave Hamas in place. So he paints a straw man caricature. That's almost like a trope. What was it? It's like canard. I think that's the word we learned earlier tonight. That's interesting. Tropes and canards. Huh. Maybe we should start to fact check some of those other tropes and canards. Because, I don't know. That really stinks as far as like journalism. How many times was he wrong before they even started to interject and ask another question? They didn't even contest him. But look at the pushback they gave against Bassem Youssef and Norman Finkelstein et al. On that show. Interesting. Almost like it's a rigged game somehow. I'm sure it's not. Sure it's not a rigged game. And we do have something juicy to play us out, but that's enough of Ben Shapiro.
Nice work, man. That's great. I mean, we got to get dude, we keep seeing Dave Smith doing the rounds, doing all these debates. Like, we need to get you on the debate circuit. Like we need to get you up against some of these folks, like the Cuomos and the Laura Loomers of the world. Like,
well, I was going to say, yeah, Tim Cass had Laura Loomer on, and she probably wouldn't have appreciated a lot of those facts because they don't fit into her political reality.
No,
it doesn't fit into her predetermined platform on which she's building. Right. So, like, when you go for the predetermined thing instead of following the evidence to where it is, sometimes those things don't match up.
What we need to do is we need to get you and Dave Smith on a panel against somebody, dude. That would be that'd be a historic event.
Here's my plan. We're both going to be in New Hampshire at PorcFest. I've seen Dave there before. I haven't talked to him. I have a cafe there. Dave can eat all week for free. So at some point he's going to hear there's like steaks and whatever that he wants to eat, and we can have a chat. But
I'm sure your reputation precedes you. I'm in touch with Robbie. They did some ad reads for us Dave was doing ad reads for Unjected a couple months ago. Like,
right.
So like we're connected that way. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah,
maybe,
man.
Maybe the stars will align.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Some Project Constellation action.
Yep.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come